within the country and beyond. But we reference our newspapers. We try to create some sort of foundation for the conversations that we have on radio, and that foundation is mostly via our newspapers or even perspective on TV. We're also Guardian, The Punch, and Book YouTube, where we want to be a part of the conversation. You have a motion or you're driving, just say we have a website that you can also use to listen to our programs. It's via Radio Guardian as well, or what in the papers on Milan 8.3 FM.
Good morning, Sage. I'm good.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
And not necessarily on the front page, but I don't know. Actually, Enugu State is moving to, and you understand, apartment is now going for the Enugu State government commission and commission. And in fact, when you leave a place and nothing is done in Lagos, for you and I have had commission from the initial amount that is the amount of money that we pay for
law. The most rent in advance, this advance rent, stay in advance, just the a year element of landlords demanding for advance rents that were becoming unbearable. But again, see, the law is the law. The reality is that when it comes to the tenancy law, or then on this tenancy law thing, and we said that local, very laudable idea. Of course, you want to also see a situation where landlords can get rents of only 6 months. For example, if you are renewing your rent, the tenancy law says you can only do 6 months, not 1 year. Starting out 1 year, continuous payment 6 months. And we told the government that, look, that it is only the government now that you can say that about or give that rules to obey the law. But when there's crisis, it's not to force anybody to obey it. But when there's a crisis between the landlord and the tenant, then you would have to resort to sections of the law. And if in your transaction you violated a part of that law, then the tenancy law cannot save you. So what am I trying to bring up? I don't know the statistics, the data when it comes to demand and supply, when it comes to availability of rented apartments and the demand for it, the supply. In Lagos, for example, you know that in most cosmopolitan parts of Lagos, because of that, you have landlords. If you understand what I'm saying,
yes.
Property, or who just says one small thing in front of the property is also an agent. Everybody is an agent, and they are so bad to the extent that they are looking at getting money that are even bigger than the rent itself.
Yes.
You understand? So this is the issue. You understand what I mean? Because the law is there, but if it is violated, what are the consequences? For example, especially for a willing tenant who is ready to pay more. Because if they tell you to pay this amount of money and say you are not interested, they give it to the next person who is interested. And you want the apartment. So, people are looking for, look, say, we did,
we do
the apartments are not available.
Fad, I will not even do it, because the ones I did around Surulere, they are telling me to pay 1.2 million naira for a 1-bedroom apartment. Total package is 1.8 million. This is for 1 room, 1.8 million.
And if you say you cannot afford it, there are several people who are ready to take it.
Yes, now.
So, if a law now says, okay, and then how would the law determine the appropriate rent for different locations, for example, in Enugu State? So, in Surulere, that are highbrow, there are parts of Surulere that are not as expensive because of where they are located. For example, and then the house again, in Lagos now, they will tell you that they are finding the appropriate rent for a property. And I think a law cannot automatically correct it. Look at what has happened, for example, with multiple years of advance rent payment in Lagos and most parts of the country. Before in Lagos, the minimum will be 2, 3, 4 years. But somehow it has now become a culture. Everybody somehow adjusts. I don't know how it happened. It's now 1 year. I think most parts now, you are going to pay for 1 year in advance. Without any law compelling anybody to do it, people just adjust it naturally. So I think what the government should do more is to look at the housing supply, the issue of housing, the housing deficit, the housing supply issues. Once we are able to create some level of balance between demand and supply in terms of rented apartments, this thing should naturally resolve itself. But now, the landlords can always do what they want to do, and you say you don't want, they'll tell you, go and meet the governor. Even that the governor create the law, they should put you in his own apartment. And there's really nothing you can do.
Oh, thank you very much, but I just wanted to raise it because it's a conversation I intend to have a broader discuss on the housing crisis and also what the law says, tenancy, landlord agreement, and what have you. But I just wanted to raise that in the morning to see how successful the Enugu government will be. We can even use this as a litmus test to see if the law really can protect tenants across Nigeria. Well, thank you for your analysis on that. Let's get to the stories of the day. The Guardian newspaper is what we're starting with, and we're talking about electoral process, or should I say a leadership selection process. The Guardian newspaper, the top story, Jonathan Jega, carpet politician, judiciary, INEC over flawed election, is on page 6, and the story reads, former President Goodluck Jonathan has attributed the shortcomings of political actors to the behavior of the Independent National Electoral Commission and the judiciary. Jonathan made this observation on Tuesday in Abuja at a reflection conference on democratic elections in West Africa organized by Yagi Africa. He insisted that for the review of the electoral law to be meaningful in Nigeria, it must be comprehensive enough to address all the grey areas that plague the conduct of the election at both the national and the subnational level. According to him, for elections to be properly conducted, the judiciary must play an important role, adding to say that every human being has the feeling to cheat, even if you're born from heaven. As long as you're human, that feeling that you must exploit, you must cheat is there. But if the environment does not accept it, then you become careful. He goes on to give us examples of countries that have conducted elections that were peaceful, right? And, the winners were very quick, the losers, I beg your pardon, were very quick to concede for the sake of peace. But the key points from this address of former President Goodluck Jonathan and even former INEC head Atari Rujega was that, first of all, INEC has a role to play. He's saying that if you as an individual within INEC feels like you cannot handle the pressure, the external pressure, is best you resign than to succumb to the pressure of manipulating election. He also talks about the judiciary, especially now that we found ourselves in a situation where the judiciary makes the ultimate decision. After an electoral process of people getting their PVC, standing under the sun to vote, collating, transmitting, people take each other to court, and then we have 6 individuals or 7 individuals, I beg your pardon, or 5, depending, deciding who the winner of the election is, wasting the effort of people who participated in the electoral process. He talks about INEC, he talks about the judiciary, and he talks about the individuals as well that participate in that election, the contenders, the lengths they are willing to go to make sure that they win the election. And they say unless we revise all of these things, including our electoral laws, trying to perfect the electoral process will be an effort in futility. Forward.
Fantastic from former President Goodluck Jonathan. He has become the ambassador of peaceful transition of power in most parts of Africa. But when there's going to be an election observer in different parts of Africa, you see that it's always at the forefront. It's always been the man that goes there to ensure the right things are done, probably just to observe and ensure that, look, there's a peaceful transition of power in most of those countries. Again, he has a record of an incumbent who has lost an election and decided to hand over to the winner. So that record is there. It speaks for him. And I think whenever he talks about selflessness of electoral officers, judicial officers, or politicians, he's a man that has a moral standing to speak to such an issue. Now, former President Jonathan was actually talking about the people's factor in the conduct of our election. Because again, you can create a structure, you can do beavers, you can do IRs, things. But what he's saying is that, look, until you have people who are selfless and who are committed to doing the right thing, you'll still find that these things will still fail. That was when he talked about INEC officials, for example, that, look, if that pressure comes, they come with money, they tell you to manipulate the electoral process. If the selfless are committed enough to nation building to say, look, I'm no more good, I want to resign, I'm going. But do we have people like that in the country? How many of such people do we have in the country who are going to be that selfless to the point where they say, oh, I'm not going to be induced. If you try to circumvent the process, I'm not going to be a part of it. I would rather lose my position than be a part of an attempt to subvert the will of the people. So, Jonathan was talking about selflessness. The selfless act of ensuring the right things are done at the point of inducement, at the point of whatever anybody wants to do to manipulate the process. But have we really seen that level of selflessness? A lot of times, people talk about the INEC chairman as if he's the only one that conducts elections. They forget about resident electoral commissioners. They forget about field officers. Because INEC is not just the chairman. Elections are conducted in thousands of wards and polling units in the country. And there are people who man these things, who do these things, who help the people to subvert the will of the people. And then there comes the judiciary too. See, look at the story of the judiciary in our electoral process. It has now become a situation where you go out there to shop for judgment. See, yeah, judgment for sale. So politicians now know the cost to go for, to shop for judgment. And if anybody is telling you the judiciary is not culpable, well, it's probably just deceiving themselves. We know what we know, system. So, Jonathan is probably not saying anything new. Atayo Jegatu, they were not actually saying anything new. These things we know, and that's why some of us have been saying that, look, before we go into another electoral cycle, general electoral cycle, can we again go back to waste committee reports? The report is there. I'm sure Jonathan today will be regretting, his inability to have been able to implement that report, because the report was there when he was president. It talks about how to guarantee the independence of INEC, how INEC officials are to be appointed from the chairman to the last person to guarantee their independence. It talks about the role of the judiciary in the electoral process, how to also ensure that, they do the right things when it comes to, judicial interpretation of electoral disputes. It talks about how to also engage the security operatives during elections so that they are not found culpable. Funding of elections, how to also take care of, violence during elections, politics. So a lot of things you find in the Wales report. But we have not been able to get our leaders to have the goodwill, the commitment to dust off that committee report and implement it into. When we implement it, we can now start the advocacy. For our leaders, our politicians, INEC officials to now commit to the tenets as is found in that committee report. But it will continue to say this thing. So that we'll move on this issue. It's so sad that in Nigeria, again talking about politicians, we see people go into political criminality. They circumvent the process, subvert the will of the people, bribe INEC officials, do all manner of things, encourage thuggery. And you know what we say here? Oh, they say it's a political genius. Is that not the way we call it? The man that, or a politician that is so good at subverting the will of the people, bribing electorate, compromising INEC officials, putting thugs out to carry ballot boxes, subvert the will of the people. And you see some Nigerians who will sit down and say, oh, he's a political genius. So the political geniuses we have in the country are actually political criminals. But we don't have a system to tame them. That's the unfortunate thing.
Very, very sad indeed. Page 6, major issues have been raised, and good luck, Jonathan, including Atayo Jega. Both men are qualified to actually speak on the process, because they understand, they are a part of the system, and they're speaking to the ills within the electoral process, and they've highlighted what the problems are. But it mostly borders around interference of those in high places. INEC also succumbing to the interference of these individuals, right? And also integrity. It's best to remove yourself than to be persuaded to follow the trend of manipulating results and the judiciary as well. Yes.
See, that's what I look at what Jonathan was saying. He talked about other African countries, small African countries.
Yes, Ghana.
Who have not even been able to deploy as much as technology we have deployed in the electoral process.
Yeah.
But who have been able to conduct beautiful elections. He talked about Liberia, where incumbent Judge Way lost to the opposition, and so be it. He talked about Ghana, where a former president who handed over to the new one, who was leaving, who is now handing over to the new one. So you have a transition between opposition political parties. Peacefully. He also talked about Senegal. Senegal was going to be a problem.
Yes.
Postponement of elections, was it going to hold or not? But eventually they conducted the election. Look at how peaceful it was. So when will Nigeria get to that point where we can conduct elections and beat our chest to say, look, this is the will of the people?
Well, for us, you understand, political parties are the drivers. They're the ones who really drive. At APC rather begins 2027 groundwork as Tinubu governors, party leaders meet on internal crisis. The drivers to this story, ministerial PF cautions Nigerians. Now, the ruling All Progressives Congress have set the groundwork for the 2027 politicking in earnest as President Bola Tinubu yesterday presided over the National Caucus meeting of the APC, marking the first of such gathering since he assumed office on the 29th of May 2023. Now, the high-level meeting, which held at the State House Conference Center, Abuja, with key party leaders in attendance. Duje was there and was accompanied by 9 other members of the National Working Committee, including the Deputy National Chairman. There are also APC governors that attended that particular caucus meeting. So the communique of the meeting is still being expected. As this report was being put together, they did not necessarily have the communique of the meeting, but we're hoping to get more information probably before midweek politics, midday. But Fuad, as you know, Nasir El-Rufai, right, has been saying a lot of things, and he has been questioning the sagacity of that political party, or should I say the cohesion within the party, and also their adherence to intra-party democracy, right? And and one thing he said was that this is not the party that I know. Since the president took over power, not one single meeting. So how do you make decisions if you've not even come together to rub minds, if you've not come together to share idea? How do you even make decisions? Is it one person that just tells you to do something and everybody goes on board? Well, that has been rectified. There was a caucus meeting and there will be a NEC meeting to said as well. And Bayo Ononga, as expected, right, responded. He says El-Rufai should stop crying over spilled milk. He's just upset because he didn't get the ministerial position, which El-Rufai saying that it wasn't, the Senate that rejected me. The president probably changed his mind and said he didn't want me anymore, which is fine. As a matter of fact, El-Rufai was not at that meeting because he's on his way to Cairo right now, I believe, for the fasting, amongst other things. So, Fuad, now that they've decided to meet, what changes do you expect to see within the party structure? Because some of the things they intend to talk about is to resolve the animosity between party members, and also to have conversations about the multiple litigations that are going on that involves the APC at the executive and also the subnational.
Well, again, one would assume, looking at if after El-Rufai calls the party leadership out for not holding meetings, they now decided to hold this particular caucus meeting. I think the next meeting was going to follow. So it probably means El-Rufai was correct, and so they got that info. They got that info and decided to just quickly act on it. Because what he said basically was that since the president came to power, there has never been any NEC meeting. The party caucuses have not been meeting. It's almost looking like a one-man show. Everybody just looks to the president for guidance and direction, which is not supposed to be the running of a political party, with the size and stature of the APC. So, but whether you like it or not, I don't really understand the crisis that the party has, apart from crises of individuals who are felt marginalized. And I'm sure that, look, for those who are still going to be accommodated and carried along, the party will always find a way to solve its problem. If there's a skill that you will give to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu when it comes to politics, it's crisis management. You don't understand what I'm saying?
I'm with you.
I can tell you that if you might question some other things, so when it comes to crisis management within a political party that he controls or he needs, that I know he will be able to do properly. And I'll tell you
that, Fuad. I'm glad you said, because the resolution for the Rivers State Governor and Wike, I did not necessarily enjoy that technique, to be honest. But that's what I'm saying. I'm glad you clarified. Please go ahead. Go ahead. I do not like that one.
So I'm sure that somehow, I don't know whether El-Rufai, the issue will still be resolved, but it's not impossible. I'm telling you. That's why I've been cautioning a lot of people that are trying to put this El-Rufai case on their head. That look, you could just wake up one day and discover that look, they resolve their issue. Because it's a political crisis among politicians. It's not really about nation building. Don't let anybody put this one did not appoint this one is not my friend. Oh, it was not the Senate that rejected my ministerial appointment. It was this. It was the president who probably changed it. You see that in everything, there was not the Nigerian conversation in it. It was just about them and himself. and the crisis they have between themselves. So we should be very, very careful to not begin to think that, look, whatever crisis El-Rufai has with the leadership of the APC is about nation building. No. We can discuss it because it's our job to talk about it because of the people involved. But when it comes to the context, the contextual analysis of whether there's nation building in it, no, let's put that aside. It's just a disagreement between them. So we want to see how the APC is able to put this out in order. Really, if there are any crises, I doubt that, look, they are not as a mess in crisis like the PDP or the Labour Party. The crisis will come before 2027. Right. It might be an implosion. There are people who already predict that the more they begin to bring people into the party, the possibility of an implosion is there. Because again, you are bringing new people from other parties. They also are coming with their own interest. So how do you manage the interests of new entrants and the ones who are already in the party? But that's, like I said, somehow, especially with the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, his understanding of politics and how to solve things like this, I'm sure they are going to be able to manage their issue better than the PDP and the Labour Party. But on Bayo Onanuga and El-Rufai, again, Bayo Onanuga will always say, well, I have seen supporters of the president and the APC who think that the only reason El-Rufai is bitter is because they didn't give him ministerial appointment. And I laugh. And they condemn him. Oh, do you want to destroy the party because you did not get a ministerial appointment? The same set of people are praising Nyesom Wike for doing the same thing El-Rufai is finally going to be doing now to the APC, to the PDP. Wike is a fantastic politician. Because, you see, I said, when politicians say things, know that they say it because it suits their own narrative and their interest. Oh, El-Rufai is a bad person. A good politician should not destroy his own party because he didn't give him an appointment. Why is Wike doing what he's doing to PDP today? Was it not because he didn't get the party's ticket? And that they didn't even give him the VP nomination? He was not nominated as VP, running mate to Atiku. So they are happy. They praise Wike, they like what Wike is doing to the PDP. But the same set of people are condemning El-Rufai for what he's doing in the APC. And that's why I say don't bother with politicians. When they talk about equity, fairness, justice, and the right things that people must do, it is only when it suits their own narrative. In reality, they are not even committed to anything. It's just about their own interest. So on this matter, El-Rufai, APC, let them continue to have their fight. When they resolve, we will not be there. And if we don't resolve it, so be it. What we should concentrate on is to continue to talk about nation building, reforming the electoral process, so that we can have an electoral system that produces the best of us to rule the rest of us.
Well, that particular report is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. This is still trends in the papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. I'm Sage Babalola. Fouad is with us here, providing analysis to the stories we're analyzing. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. Listen via Radio Guardian at Mainland 98.3 FM, as well as the websites www.mainlandfm.com. Moving on to other stories, for so we can capture the bulk of the story we have. I want us to talk about this real quickly. Page 30 tells us Natasha sues Akpabio, aid 100.3 billion naira for alleged defamation as Senate considers punishment. Now let's look at page 30. The Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan has filed a lawsuit against Senate President Godswill Akpabio for allegedly defaming her. The suit was filed before the Federal Capital Territory High Court yesterday, with Akpabio and his senior legislative aide Ufon Patrick listed as second to third defendants. Now in the suit, Uduaghan, through her lawyer Victor Giwa, referred to Akpabio's words published by his aide on Facebook page with the title "Is Local Content Committee of Senate Natasha's Birthright," where he stated that the claimant taught being a lawmaker is all about pancaking her face and wearing transparent outfit to the chambers. Fouad, this altercation happened roughly about a week ago, where there was a standoff between Senator Natasha and Godswill Akpabio, Speaker of the House, the Senate President, so to speak. And then we saw Natasha calling out Godswill Akpabio, that why is it that you're so fixated on me? What have I done to you? I'm not afraid of you. Fuad, we even remember that during her during the election process, the road that was leading to Natasha's place, it was broke. I'm looking for the right word now. It was just destroyed, that she's not able to leave where she was. That aside, then they've had altercations in the past as well. And now we saw this standoff where they asked her to leave her seat. And she's saying, why do I have to leave my seat? I don't want to leave my seat. And then, she's quoting part of the House Facebook post and say that Natasha thinks that being in the Senate is all about pancaking her face and wearing transparent outfits to the assembly, something she thinks is defamatory, and she has approached the law to defend her. Fuad, we're just 5 days or so away from International Women's Day. We have very poor representation of women within the structure of government. We know the things that women have gone through before they even achieve the little that they have achieved. At the time where we're asking for representation, we have individuals who think it's okay to go on social media and say that she thinks being in the Senate is all about applying pancake, beautifying herself, and wearing transparent outfits to the Senate. What message is this sending out, and why is it starting to look? Now, this is me asking a question, not a statement. Why is it starting to look that there is some sort of problem that Godswill Akpabio has with this particular woman, or at least that's what most Nigerians think? And how can we rectify this particular issue such that regardless of gender, you're able to properly represent your constituency in the House?
Well, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate, because again, out of this plethora of issues entering the country at the time that we're supposed to be focused on. We're now talking about where a senator sat and then fight over a seat or not. The Senate has rules, and I think we need to say that clearly. And those rules, you expect, for example, senators to abide by those rules. Sitting arrangements, how to talk, when to talk. Very, very important, because again, that's why you have a chief whip, for example, in the House, so that there can be orderliness. So you can't just talk from wherever you are sitting. I think she's wrong on that, because she was quoting the Senate privileges, part of the law and all of those. The reality is that, look, there are rules guiding proceedings of the House, whether it's at the Senate or the House of Reps or even state assemblies. And there are also sitting arrangements. That's why in the Senate, for example, and in the House of Reps, you see that names of legislators are put on their seat. And what people have said is that if you go and check that video, Senator Natasha was not even talking from her seat. The name, there have been a rearrangement. We've been having defection. People have been moving from PDP to us, based on the number of representation in the House, on the Senate floor. So, again, there could have been a disagreement in the sitting arrangement. But again, that altercation, I thought that they had moved on, that people had apologized. For example, I was saying the spokesperson yesterday, because the case has now been reported to the disciplinary committee of the Senate. And what he was saying is that people like Natasha that came in through court decisions, so they don't start with them. So they really don't have the complete orientation of how things are supposed to. We don't really understand what must have been said to other people that started out with them. So he was talking to the Senate chief whip and the admin of the Senate that look, henceforth, when new people are brought in through the court, ensure you give them orientation of how things are done here. So I was thinking that somehow they would have been able to resolve this issue. But just yesterday, Senator Natasha went to court and now pointed her mind to the fact that, look, there has been defamatory statements against her by the aid of the Senate President, although they also put the Senate President in that suit. So I don't know, because I've seen a part of that suit post, a social media post of the aid to the Senate President, where that one too wrote on his social media, I think it was Facebook, that look, does she think it's just about pancake or coming to the Senate floor in transparent clothes? And I'm sure you see the problem. At least one would expect that for you to be an aid, a media aid or whatever aid to the Senate President, your brain must be working to a particular level to know that was going to be more problematic, even to your principal. Look at that statement. Look at how the ones that come to mind. Why would you go and write about the senator, for example, that does she think it's just about pancake? I'm wearing transparent clothes to the Senate. I don't know whether that post has been pulled down, but I've seen people putting up a screenshot of that particular post from, I've forgotten his name now, who is an aide to the Senate President. No, the lawyers will sort that out. But my mind tells me that at some point, these guys should lock themselves in a room apologize to themselves and move on this particular one. I think it will be resolved somehow. But again, what goes to show that look, our people are not really serious. Where we think that they will be focused on serious matters of nation building, look at the issues they are fighting over. But I think it's also condemnable, completely condemnable, and it should be condemned. That people put out false like that. There was a time that the Senate President also made a statement where I think Senator Natasha was talking. I said, oh, no, this is not a beer parlor, this is not a clubhouse. Suggestive of the fact that she's not somebody who is even fit to be in that chamber. So I know women will fight for women. You people will continue to do the fight. I'm just saying it's wrong.
But it's not about women fighting for Godswill Akpabio, actually, and this is not this before. Right, he has done this before, where he made comments and he was very disrespectful. Who was the Senate President at the time? When he was just a floor member. He has done it before.
Okay.
There's was it Bukola Saraki now that was the Senator? Yes, he had done it before. He was made that I would speak if I want to speak. You can't tell me not to speak. You don't. And he walked out and he was upset and he made an entire mess of the sitting that day, and nobody asked him to be taken out by security operatives, because he did ask security operatives to take Senator Natasha out. Nobody asked him. Nobody said he should be taken out. So he doesn't have the moral standing.
I understand how you feel, but that's the rule, really. If you become so unruly and disrupt Senate proceedings, the rule permits that, look, you should be let out.
Yes, I agree. I'm just saying that, yes, I do agree with you 100% that, yes, Senator Natasha could have handled that differently. Go to the assigned seat and raise your concerns from your new seat. Of course, decorum is necessary. But then again, I'm saying that Godswill Akpabio is standing on the fact that she's disobeying rules, right? You have disobeyed rules. This exact same scenario has played out where you... Exactly, it doesn't make a right, but you've done it before. So I don't know what his representation is talking about. Talk to your principal too and remind him of when once upon a time he was disrespectful. I will just move on to other stories here, because talking about this is very aggravating for me, and I don't want to seem like I'm biased on this or anything like that. I don't want to talk about it. Fuad, I'll leave this. I'll go now. You can't bring Godswill Akpabio now to do this. All right, let's move on to other stories in The Guardian. You're marginalizing Muslims, Sharia Council tells Tinubu. We have here the Supreme Council for Sharia in Nigeria, SCSN, has expressed disappointment over the Muslim ticket that brought President Bola Tinubu and his vice Kashim Shettima into office in 2023. Islamic clerics under the SCSN said that even though both Tinubu and Shettima are of the same faith, it has not changed the plight of the Muslim community. They also insisted that despite the general belief that the ticket would favor the Muslim community more, the reverse is the case, as millions of Muslims are politically marginalized under the current administration. This was a remark he made at the pre-Ramadan lecture. The president of SCSN, Sheikh Abdurrashid Hadiyatullah, said also reminded the federal government about the socio-economic hardship in the country, which was warned not to be distracted, that because you have your vote along religious lines, don't vote along ethnic lines. We had a good luck, John. Muslim ticket was, well, Muslims will have a better life in Nigeria. And then they also referenced, the Sharia panel that they wanted. Well, and let me not join the bandwagon, I call it a Sharia panel, but a Muslim arbitration panel, and the kickback that particular structure saw. They're referencing it here that Muslims are not even allowed to set up structures that are particular to them, and so the Muslim arrangement has borne absolutely zero benefit for them. What does this tell us, Fuad? What lesson is there to be learned from this?
Well, again, the Sharia Council met with the president, and in the statement they put out, or in their statement, they actually modeled up so many things. If you look at the things they said, they had infused too many things, and it will be difficult for you to really know what exactly they were talking about or what their concerns were. First, they talked about political marginalization. And it would be nice to ask them, as a Sharia council, as Muslims, what does it mean to be politically marginalized? Because I was hoping that they would define it more. They would give more details of political marginalization as Muslims. They didn't define it. It would be nice. Because, again, you have a Muslim ticket that some people have said was going to lead to an Islamization of the country. And then you now have a Sharia Council telling the president that, no, despite this ticket, we are still politically marginalized. I don't know what that means. And it would be nice for them to explain. whether it's about the numbers now or it's about the appointment. I don't even know. And then they came up again to talk about the hardship in the country. And I thought that they would have just left it at that. Now look, you have a Muslim ticket that people had questioned before. But make this ticket work. Make this ticket work to the point where people who were concerned about the ticket will now praise it. There's nothing bad about it because people are now seeing the benefit of the ticket. So I was hoping that they would emphasize more on the suffering and hardship in the land at this time, which as Muslims, they have a duty to do. And then they went on. So when the point when they matched political marginalization with the hardship in the land, at that time I just gave up. I'm sorry, these guys are going to mess with my head. And I'm going to go tell them any serious. Because I don't understand what they do about political marginalization. What that means, I don't know. But again, it is what it is. And like you rightly put out there, say, people should be careful to get distracted with some of these things. Do you now see that the supposed beneficiaries of the Muslim business are even complaining? So everybody is marginalized now. And I keep saying it. The best way to create equity, fairness, and justice in Nigeria, is to get a political process that brings in people who are going to be committed to nation building, use the resources of the people to work for the country and work for the people. Ethnicity, religion, all of these things, politicians deploy to distract us. If the country is good, I'm telling you, there are few people that will be talking about religion or ethnicity. If the countries are not working, that people lash onto the sentiment to raise unnecessary dust. And then you talk about Sharia panel or no Sharia panel. The reality is that everybody is on the edge. There's a level of distrust that anything that even looks good is brought up into sentimental conversations and then makes it a lot problematic for us. So at the end of the day, I think the Sharia Council would have known what the intention was. Speak to the hardship in the country, fantastic. But political marginalization, I don't know. And I don't know where that is coming from.
Well, Fuad, I would like us to reference, this IBB conversation before we leave. Femi Falana, right, is threatening legal action against Peter Obi, who's saying he had nothing to do with that. All he did really was he voted in that election, and there was hardly any influence that he had in that entire arrangement. So, if you can talk about these two stories, because we're running out of time. Peter Obi's
and I tried to prosecute us at that time for questioning the annulment of June 12th, for them to even release it. We have now come out to say it is true, the man won the election. We will seek for damages. So he said we're going to go to court. And I think we should also see more people come out to take IBB to court, now that he has owned up, now that he has agreed to the fact that they subverted the will of things because of the annulment of June 12th. There are people who lost loved ones who can also take him to court. I think they should be getting court cases every day on that June 12 matter. It didn't concern me. Was I in the military? I was never even a contractor. You know we're in the era of misinformation, deliberate misinformation. Because people have been putting it out that he was related to actor Irzeribe. Okay, the story of actor Irzeribe is clear to everybody. Those were the guys. Better Nigeria for Kiliko, because they were the people running around to ensure that the election was annulled. And there were people who were linking Peter Obi to actor Irzeribe, and he said, look, I only voted and left the country. I was never even involved in anything. The only time I had a little relationship with the military, it was not even a relationship, was when I complained about court processes, the operations of the court, and the committee was set up to look at the efficiency in the court, and I was just part of that committee under Abacha. I was never an appointee or anything, so it's clear the air, but again, I think Mr. Peter Obi, again, should know that we are in the era where a lot of political mischief would always come.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that his media aid have been able to clear the air on that. But, people will still believe what they want to believe, no matter what to say.
Well, Fuad, thank you very much. We are out of time. When we come back, I actually wanted us to talk very briefly about the whole Lagos State Assembly conversation with Mudashiru Obasa and the law. So we'll just take 5 minutes from Mainland Focus. I'm so sorry for that, but we need to go. We have a commercial break. Thank you, Fuad, for your analysis. Stick around. Morning Express still continues. Mainland Focus will be on air at 8:40 a.m. We'll pick 2-3 stories if possible and analyze it further. But when we come back, we'll take one more story from the headlines before we get into taking your contribution. I'm Sage Babalola. Please stick around. It is the Morning Express on Mainland 98.3 FM.
Chai, my head oh. Oga landlord, why you dey shake